Moral conscience. I am Reverend Imran Shuker. Moral conscience. Deep within his conscience man discovers a law which he has not laid upon himself, but which he must obey, its voice ever calling him to love and to do what is good and to avoid evil, sound in his heart at the right moment. For man has in his heart a law inscribed by God. His conscience is man's most secret core and his sanctuary. There is his alone with God, whose voice echoes in his depths. The judgment of conscience. Moral conscience present at the heart of the person joins him at the appropriate moment to do good and avoid evil. It also judges particular choices, approving those that are good and enjoining those that are evil. It bears witness to the authority of truth in reference to the supreme good to which the human person is drawn, and it welcomes the commandments when he listens to his conscience. The prudent man can hear God speaking. Conscience is a judgment of reason whereby the human person recognizes the moral quality of the great act that he is going to perform. He is in the process of performing or has already completed in all he has and does. Man is obliged to follow faithfully what he knows to be just and right. It is by the judgment of his conscience and that man perceives and recognizes the receptions of the divine law. Conscience is a law of the mind, yet Christians would not grant that it is nothing more. I mean that it was not a dictate, nor could weigh at the motions of the responsibility, of duty, of a threat and a promise. Conscience is a messenger of him, who both in nature and in the grace speaks to us behind a veil, and teaches and rules us by his representative. Conscience is a original vicar of Christ. It is important for every person to be sufficiently present to himself in order to hear and follow the voice of his conscience. The requirement of integrity is all the more necessary as life often distracts us from any reflex, self-examination or introspections. Returns of your conscience, question it, turn inward, brethren, and everything that you do, seek God as your witness. The dignity of human person implies and requires uprightness and moral conscience. Consequences includes the dignity of human person implies and requires uprighting of the moral conscience. Conscience includes the perception of the principle of the morality, their applications in the given circumstances by practical discernment of reason and goods, and finally judgment about concrete acts yet to be performed or already performed. The truth about the moral good states in the law of reason is recognized practically and concretely by the prudent judgment of the conscience. We call that man prudent who chooses in the conformity with his judgment. Conscience enables one to assume the responsibility for the acts performed. If man commits evil, the just judgment of the conscience can remain within him as a witness to the universal truth of the good, at the same time as the evil of his particular choice. The verdict of the judgment of the conscience remains a pledge of hope, a mercy in attesting to the fault committed, its call to mind the forgiveness that must be asked, the good that must still be practiced, and the virtue that must be constantly cultivated with the grace of God. We shall resource our heart before Him whenever our heart condemns us, for God is greater than our hearts, and he knows everything. Man has the right to act in conscience and in freedom so as personally to make moral decisions. He must not be forced to act contrary to his conscience, nor must be prevented from acting according to his conscience, especially in religious matters. Thanks for watching Heaven Eternal Home. God bless you all.